Hello, and welcome to a not so special Wednesday edition of Midnight Launch News. I'm David,
I'm Dan.
and today we have so many things to talk about, but we are going to start off with a plethora of changes that have hit the Overwatch PTR. And Dan, I think your main is seeing the bulk of these changes.
Oh, well, she's no longer my main. She's the character that I just like the idea of the most. But
Okay.
I just haven't played a lot because she isn't huge in the meta these days. But yeah, Sombra is looking at getting quite a few changes, and
A
they're
ton of changes.
yeah,
So we'll,
and
we'll go over
some
them real quick if you just want to read
yeah.
them out, or I can read them out.
So,
Um,
I mean, Sombra will. So this is going to be kind of a nerf to her. Sombra will no longer gain ultimate charge off of health. They hacked health packs that other people can pick up. So
right,
before she hacked health packs, they would reappear sooner, and only your team could use them. She would gain ultimate charge when people use them. So
right.
they were going to take that out. They felt that she was gaining ultimate too quickly. They actually feel like she's got a super um, heavy ultimate,
Okay.
which very situational when you to use it. But I mean, it doesn't kill anybody whatsoever. But
I mean, I guess that ultimate, or rather the way that she gains her ultimate, is a little bit awkward because if you're playing on a good team where people aren't really needing to use the health packs, or you're playing on a bad team where people just fucking ignore the health packs, then, you might not really see your ultimate charge all that quickly.
you know what I think that they should have done? They should have done it so that if an enemy teammate or an enemy person tries to use the health pack when it's hacked, then you get charge.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, it's very clear that you can't use it. It's got like a her
Right.
red kind
Right.
of
That little outline.
digital. Yeah, well, it's got her red digital sugar skull
Right.
over it. So people should know that they can't use it. But if somebody's dumb enough to walk over it, you should get ultimate charge for that.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be
Yeah.
another good way of doing it. But I mean, that's not the only change.
Yeah, so
So,
the other thing is that the time it takes for her to hack anything has been reduced, which
right.
is pretty big deal because anytime you take damage while hacking, it completely interrupts it and you have
Right.
to start over. So that is pretty big. They're also going to change the way that some characters are affected by the hack.
Right.
So as it stands right now, when you hack another player, they just can't use their abilities, and
Right.
that's pretty much it. But what they're looking at right now is they're going to eliminate some of the kind of almost passive abilities, we'll say, that
Okay.
some of the other characters can use, such as Genji. Genji can double jump. If
Right.
he gets hacked, Genji will no longer be able to double jump.
Okay.
Uh, Farah, like basically the spacebar for Farah is her hover jets, and it kind of allows her to gain altitude, kind of bounce up and down at a specific altitude. If
Right.
she gets
And
hacked, she
maintain
won't.
altitude.
Yeah, and maintain altitude. Basically, if you hack Farah, she's coming down to the ground.
Oh, it's gonna be awkward.
Yeah. So those are the two that they specifically talked about, but they did want input from the players about other ways that other characters could be hacked that work the same way. One that
Right.
I kind of thought up while I was thinking about it was um, Junkrat. Junkrat cannot be damaged by his own grenades
Mm-hmm.
unless they're reflected at him by Genji. And I was like, well, wouldn't that be cool? You hack the Junkrat, and now he actually can hurt himself with his own grenades
Right. And they've talked
until the
about
hack
a
runs
few
out.
more. Hondo's wall climb, Lucio's wall ride. It's gonna deactivate Lucio's current song, and then Mercy's angelic descent.
Oh, okay. I
Which
hadn't heard those ones yet.
I'm not sure. God, I haven't played Mercy in so long. Is Angelic Descent, is that her super? Is that what allows
No,
her to fly, or is that
that's
just
when
kind of when she like
you
floats down?
that's when she floats when you hold space
Okay.
or her jump.
So, um, a little bit of a nerf to possibly how quickly she gets her super. But also it sounds like a little bit of a buff to her super overall or her
Yeah,
ultimate.
like just her in general, I think gets a pretty big buff with a very minor nerf to her ultimate. And there's one last thing that she gets as well is they're increasing the duration of her translocators. Her translocator is basically kind of a beacon that she can put down,
Mm-hmm.
and she can run around. I believe right now she gets 12 seconds before it
Looks like
kind of
15 seconds
yeah, so they moved
currently
it up to, oh, is it
and
15?
moved it
Okay,
up
so
to
15
20.
seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, so they found that players were not using it. Either were not using it or were using it when they didn't have to because they felt like it would be wasted if they didn't use it,
Okay.
which is a bit weird. So they wanted people to have enough time to kind of get into the thick of things and
Right.
be able to harass the other team and then
and
bug out.
and then translocate out.
Yeah,
And then
yeah, exactly.
Opportunist now activates when enemies' health bars are at less than 100%, up from 50% health.
Oh, weird. I hadn't heard that one
So
either. That's pretty big.
that's a huge change.
Yep.
Basically, being able to see anyone that has any sort of damage.
Yep. Agreed.
So sort of like the scouting capability of
Yep.
Sombra, being able to call out injured targets. You're not just going to see people that are close to dead. Now you're going to see basically everybody on the enemy team if they've taken any sort of damage.
Yeah, exactly.
So good change,
Yeah,
lots
so
of
so those
changes.
are pretty much it for Sombra. They did talk about two other characters, May.
Hmm.
Now some of the verbiage that they used in the video can be you could misunderstand it. They said
Right,
that May's freeze duration is going to be increased. It's basically when you're being slowed down by her primary fire,
right.
the time it takes for you to kind of get out of that slowdown
Hmm.
when she stops having it applied, they're going to increase that because they found that if you line of sighted May, you had a really good chance to be able to get away from her.
Right.
And they wanted to be able to have May's, if they're applying that freeze, they want to be able to give her the chance to get the full
Yeah,
duration.
to maybe turn that corner and to get
Yeah.
another tick because the range on her weapon is pretty small. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not a long range whatsoever.
yeah, it's taken to like shotgun range, right?
Right.
For the primary fire. Um, and that kind of transition to her alternate fire, which is the icicle. They're
Hmm.
basically going to reduce the amount of energy or
Right.
the ammo requirement, I guess, for it. So
Right.
basically, meaning she gets more shots with the icicle before having to reload.
Right. So the slow duration goes from 1 second up to 1.5 seconds. Ammo costs reduced from 25 to 20. Um, Basically buffs all around for May.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Nothing that could even be construed in any way as a nerf.
Yeah.
So if you didn't like May before, I'm
You're
sorry,
gonna.
you're gonna have even more reasons to hate her now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Winter has come to Overwatch, and then some changes to Doomfist as well.
Yeah, so not really a huge change to him. They so the main thing with Doomfist is his primary fire. You don't reload it normally. When you're shooting it, he basically gets 4 charges, we'll say, for his primary fire, and they will automatically reload over time. They reduce the time it takes for them to reload, and I actually saw this in person because Blizzard mistakenly put these patch or these updates into the live system on
Yeah,
Monday,
good job,
and
Blizzard.
then and then had to back it out. I believe it was yesterday they backed it back out. So I
Hmm.
did see the Doomfist one, and I was going, like I must have missed something because he's reloading a ton faster than I remember.
Hmm.
But that does come at the caveat that the damage for his primary fire has been reduced.
Right. And then it looks like the weapon spread has also changed a bit, or I guess not necessarily the weapon spread, but the bullet spread has changed a
Right.
little bit as well. So if you can fire at someone and all of your bullets hit, it's the same amount of damage. but it's going to require more skill to get all of those bullets to hit.
Right.
So, kind of neither here nor there changes for Doomfist.
Yeah, pretty much. It's kind of a sliding system.
Yeah, maybe just
Yeah.
kind of increase the skill ceiling for the character.
Yeah.
And then the people that are good, will see a little bit of an improvement because of that ammo recovery rate increasing.
Right.
And then for everyone else, it probably won't affect them all that much.
Probably not.
Looks like Symmetra and Torbjorn are on the list for the next round of tweaks.
Yeah, they definitely want to get Torb up into the meta more. Basically, the only time I see Torb being played is in Mystery Heroes when people are forced to play him.
Right.
I don't really, I do see him occasionally here and there, but not a ton else. Symmetra, well, I mean, I can't say much about Symmetra. I don't like Symmetra. I'm not a Symmetra.
I don't like Symmetra either. I think, unfortunately for Torbjorn, I wonder if buffs of any sort can actually, kind of pull him up into the meta. Because I think Torbjorn is just not a very fun character to play. And I mean, that's just me. But it seems like the entire time you're tossing down your turrets, you're fixing your turrets, you're upgrading your turrets, you're dropping, armor packs. But when a lot of your other heroes are sort of in the thick of things, you're sitting in the back and like, oh, I'm repairing my turret, so on and so forth.
Yeah, pretty much. So I would like to see something happen where he doesn't become as stationary. I get that they made him basically to be the engineer from Team Fortress.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's basically exactly who he is. But the engineer in Team Fortress is a lot more utility based. So
yeah. Well, we will see where that goes, but we're gonna move on to another.
Oh, you don't want to talk about the Hanzo? Hanzo actually had some interesting changes.
Hanzo, I did not see the Hanzo changes.
Oh no? Okay. So they actually talked about some ideas that they didn't actually do, which was kind of interesting.
Okay.
Such as they looked at changing Scattershot to be called Piercing Arrow. And the whole idea of it is it was going to be a very high travel time, or very short travel time, I guess. Basically a very fast
projectile. Okay.
Yeah, and it would actually pass through barriers. So your Reinhardt barriers.
I don't like it.
Winston barriers. Yeah, they ended up finding that they didn't really like the way it worked, so they didn't go ahead with it. Some of the other changes that they're looking at for Hanzo is they're looking at giving him an ability where he can fire 5 arrows in very rapid succession. I don't know if it'll just be something where you hit a button and he basically just fires 5 arrows straight, or if you're just able to fire 5 really quickly.
So sort of sounds like McCree's ability, rapid fire.
Yeah, like his fan the hammer.
The fan hammer.
Huh. And then they were also looking at giving Hanzo some sort of horizontal leap. Probably kind of similar to McCree as well, just without the ammo reload. They basically wanted to give him an ability so that he was able to disengage from players if players got right up in his face.
I wonder if he needs that. I mean, maybe he does. I haven't really played, sort of upper echelon of Overwatch because, quite frankly, I'm pretty terrible at it. But I've never seen Hanzo's mobility as, sort of an issue. But maybe he does
because the whole thing, and this isn't definitely that's going to happen. It's just stuff that they're toying with.
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole idea is he's really good at range, but once somebody gets in his face, then he's pretty much pooched. Like, short of using a scatter arrow, there's really not much that he can do when somebody's within, say, like May range.
Isn't that what it's about, though? Isn't that the give and take of these heroes? Is that they find that they're very good in one area and they're absolutely terrible in the other?
Yeah, and like I said, like, this isn't a definite. They're just thinking about it, kind of things. So it may not make it in.
We'll see. We'll just have to see.
Yeah.
Ready to move on? Any other changes that I didn't see?
No, I think that's it. That's all that I had.
All right. Well, let's move on to World of Warcraft. There have been some cultists added to the Broken Shore. They are Xorothian cultists, and they are sitting there. There's four of them, and they're channeling a spell called Fell Channeling. And the spell should be done, sometime on March 7th?
Yeah, looks like
So it's
as of,
yeah, like a
yeah,
400 plus hour channel.
yeah,
Basically 3 weeks worth of channeling. So, probably some sort of a content patch. Maybe we see, sort of the build up to the new expansion being released starting a little bit early. Because, World of Warcraft and Blizzard, they have started, sort of the expanding the breadth of these pre-expansion events.
right.
And it seems like every year these pre-expansion events just get longer and longer and longer. Um, you know, they said September 22nd, on or before September 22nd. Um, it'll be done March 7th. I mean, that seems like a really long time for
Yep,
a pre-expansion event.
yep.
Unless we think it's going to get released quite a bit earlier than September 22nd.
Which it could be.
It could be. I mean, the alpha is out, and it's no longer the, quote unquote internal alpha. It's more at like the friends and family alpha stage,
Right.
where Blizzard employees, their family members, and then some of the more prominent streamers are actually now playing the alpha.
Yeah.
So, I, who knows? Maybe we're gonna end up seeing the new expansion quite a bit sooner than September. That would be great.
Yep. Agreed.
That would be amazing. Moving on from World of Warcraft over to a game that I used to play a lot, but I don't really play much anymore. We're talking about Diablo. The new season is about to start. Last season, I played a lot. I probably put, 100, 200 hours into last season. They had done a lot of balancing changes. They had increased the efficacy of a lot of the set pieces. And season 13 is about to start, and they've actually announced some of the details. We're getting, of course, some new cosmetic rewards, so that'll be nice. And then Hedrig's Gift, which I'm not sure that you're familiar with. I don't know. God, you've
Not at
never
all.
really played Diablo.
I did. I did. I
A
played
little
like
bit.
5 hours of it.
Five hours. Man,
Something
you're
like
so
that.
hardcore.
I know,
You're
right?
so hardcore. So when you start a new season, you have something called a season's journey, which is basically just a list of achievements. And after completing certain chapters within the storyline and completing certain objectives, you'll get a gift from Hedrig, who I believe is the blacksmith. Don't quote me on that. But basically, he just gives you set pieces. And every season, they rotate the set pieces that he gives you. And it's just a way to sort of, get your character moving. And by the end of the game, you should, in theory, basically have a full set. So for barbarians, it's the Might of the Earth set, which is basically the Leap Quake set. Crusaders get Thorns of the Invoker. Demon Hunters get the Shadow Mantle set. Monks get the Monkey King garb. Necromancers get the Grace of Inarius. Witch Doctors the Raiment of the Jade Harvester. And Wizards the Firebird's Finery. I'm excited to go back, play some Diablo. I absolutely love it when I play it. And I basically only ever play it when a new season releases. So that'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to it. Maybe I'll get you to play this season.
Sounds good.
Probably not. You're probably not going to play with me at all.
Probably not.
Probably not. Oh, well. Well, let's move on to Xbox Party Chat. It's a good thing. I use it, you use it, we all use it. Now it's going to be available on Android and iOS. So
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
it's something.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know how much I'll use it, but
I think there's definitely going to be certain people that are going to end up using it a lot and basically just kind of having an open chat room to talk with all their friends via the Xbox Party Chat app on their cell phone. I
yeah,
think there are going to be a
probably.
ton of people that absolutely never use it because, why do they need to? If they're not at home playing on their Xbox, they probably don't need the party chat.
Right.
But it's definitely something that is nice to have. I will say that I have used the Discord app on my phone quite a few times when I was doing some raiding with my guild. And, if I was on my way home or I wasn't able to go to the raid because I was out of town, jump into the Discord app, listen to everybody raid, provide some advice when necessary.
Some emotional support.
Emotional support, yeah, kind of be the cheerleader. And it's another thing that Xbox has that PS4 does not yet have.
And anything that Xbox has that PS4 doesn't, I am happy about.
I mean, yeah, all right. All right. It's a good thing. I definitely appreciate sort of the convergence that we're seeing when it comes to consoles and then, sort of adding value via mobile devices. When
Right.
it's done like this, not when it's done the way the Switch does it. Where you
Right.
have to use your cell phone for party
So
chat.
dumb.
That is the
So dumb.
Nintendo, you're doing it wrong. You're setting us back. All right, we're trying to move forward. But this is some neat stuff.
Yeah.
So that's really all we have for console news. It's been a little bit slow.
Yeah.
We're gonna move on to loot boxes. Every week, every show, we talk about
More
loot
about the
boxes.
loot. Just gonna grind them loot boxes.
My goodness. This is going to be the never ending discussion. We're just constantly going to be talking about it. Hawaii is trying to take on loot boxes, and they have created a couple of bills specifically to combat the predatory mechanisms, and that's what they call it, of loot boxes that are, and this is a quote, designed to exploit human psychology to compel players to keep spending money in the same way casino games are designed. So there's two bills. There's HB 2686, and then there's HB 2727. HB 2686. It's a long bill, but effectively, what it comes down to is they do not want loot boxes to be available to people under the age of 21.
Interesting.
So you can't buy a loot box until you can
Would
legally
you
gamble.
still be able to grind loot boxes?
I would assume so because the issue they have is you paying money for the loot box.
But how are they going to enforce that then? Like how are game developers gonna know? Like
I
do
don't
they have
know.
to confirm that you're 21 pop up? Well, like
I mean, the really awkward thing is you can get a credit card earlier than the age of 21. I
yeah.
mean, you can do a lot of things before you turn 21. You can drive a
Yep.
car, you can smoke cigarettes if that's something you want to do. And I'm with you. I don't think there is an effective way for anyone to end up policing a bill like this.
No.
And, I think the real issue, or at least one of the issues that we need to think about when we see our government trying to kind of police the industry that we love, is if this bill does pass, the burden of policing this is not going to fall onto the shoulders of our government. It's going to fall
God,
onto
no.
the shoulders of Sony and Microsoft and all of these publishers. But the penalties, if they slip up, that money is, of course, going to go directly to the government.
Oh, of course it is.
I see where they're coming from. And I do think loot boxes can be a little bit predatory in nature. But I also think if you are old enough to have a job, you are old enough to decide what you want to do with your money. And
Agreed.
if you want to gamble it away on loot boxes, that is your decision to make.
Yep.
And we should not be telling people whether or not they can do it based on an arbitrary number like age.
Yeah.
I don't know. And I don't see the ESRB stepping in here. They've pretty much
they'll
said they
say
don't want
it's
to do
totally
anything.
up to the government and the game developers to do their thing, because they don't care.
No, they don't care.
All they care about is making sure they don't get calls from pissed off moms and dads because their little kid
And at one
somehow
point
got
the
a hold of a mature
ESRB
title.
was created to prevent the government from stepping in and policing video games, because prior to the ESRB, we had no ratings, games were coming out, and parents were getting extremely upset. So the video game industry as a whole is like, well, we need to get a handle on this before something heavy-handed, comes down from the government, and thus the ESRB is created. And, I feel like it's a little bit their responsibility to kind of help the gaming industry through this, so that we don't see the government coming in and trying to police this and trying to pass bills based on this.
Yeah, true enough.
I feel like they might be skirting their responsibility, but let's talk about HB 2727. This is actually a bill that I can get along with, but I would much prefer the publishers come to this conclusion as opposed to the government having to force it upon them. Basically, what HB 2727 says is publishers must disclose the odds to players for the loot boxes that they are purchasing in terms of the items they will get.
I think that's a no-brainer.
I really do think video game publishers should just be doing this.
Yeah. I mean, we know roughly how Blizzard's Overwatch loot boxes, what their drop rates are, because China forced them to do it.
Yeah, China forced them to do that in 2017. And this would allow the government, and this is a little bit awkward, but this would allow Hawaii's government to audit video games in order to ensure that the odds that these publishers tell the public are the actual odds. Yeah, that's a little bit weird.
That's a little bit, because that's them basically saying, hand us over user data.
Yeah, hand us over the code to your game so that we can double check what you're saying.
That I'm less on board with.
So this is
but I mean I don't really see how else you can verify that the odds are correct out in the wild versus,
right
in a controlled environment that the developers set up.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another part for this one is they want warning labels put on video games that use loot boxes, disclosing the dangers of gambling type mechanics within video games.
Oh, piss off. There's so much warning crap on video games already.
At this point, there's going to be no room for the title of the game. It's just going to be warning boxes all over the place.
Like, when you compare video game warning labels to movies, it's just insane.
Yep, it's
how much more. Yeah. Like, you know what? If they wanted to put it in the ESRB warning on the back that says loot boxes, or gambling mechanics.
And here's the funny thing. The ESRB already has this for, kind of like their poker games.
Right.
And it's called simulated gambling. And they put that in the little ESCR or ESRB warning box where it talks about, violence, language,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So they could
Yeah.
definitely just put it right there. I certainly don't think we need a giant billboard type warning on the front of our video games saying, hey, this game has loot boxes.
Well, and how do you enforce that on digitally purchased titles too?
So they actually
That's
have
great
that
for a
in the
physical
bill.
copy. Yeah.
They want it on the page where you purchase the video game.
Yeah, whatever, fine, sure.
So,
But how many people fully read through like the terms and conditions of buying online?
this just it's getting ridiculous, and I don't know who I am more upset with. If I'm more upset with the government for trying to police this, or if I am more upset with the game industry for letting it get to a point where the government feels they need to intervene.
Agreed.
Like, I
Yeah.
feel like there is plenty of blame to go around, and I think the only people that are going to end up getting hurt in the end are going to be the users that have grown used to these mechanics, maybe even like these mechanics, or, the companies that could have taken a stance earlier and didn't, and now they're going to have to deal with these heavy-handed legislation.
Yep.
So, and it's just, and that of course is just going to end up negatively affecting the end user.
Right.
So that's like, I guess that's our 20 minutes on loot boxes. Good Lord. We're going to kind of segue from that. And interestingly enough, we're not actually getting away from loot boxes completely, because this next, sort of report has a lot to do with loot boxes. And that is that Disney might be parting ways with EA over past performance of their video games using the Star Wars license. Of course, we have Battlefront 1, which was not great, didn't have a single player campaign, people are upset. Then we have Battlefront 2. Loot boxes, don't really need to say anything else. We've got Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, which...
Well, Knights of the Old Republic was very well beloved. I think you might be talking about the Old Republic.
Oh, the Old Republic. The MMO,
MMO.
is the one
Yeah,
I'm talking about. Right.
Yep.
And
Which is still running.
still around, but
still there.
certainly did not meet expectations
No.
for an MMO built on the Star Wars license. And then they have one more video game, which is called Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes. I'm pretty sure this is actually
it's a mobile
device
title.
video game.
Yeah.
So Disney, and by Disney it was actually LucasArts at the time, made this deal with EA back in 2013. 10-year deal from what we understand, so it goes through 2023. And I'm sure LucasArts was expecting to have far more than 4 video games released in the last 5 years, of which one is a mobile-only title, one is a sequel.
Yep.
Most of these games, or quite frankly all of these games, underachieved based on the license that they were given, to kind of build upon. And there are now rumors. Go ahead.
Well, and that doesn't even account for the canceled titles like was it Platform 1313?
Yep.
And
Yes, sir.
Project Ragtag and
Oh, I think Ragtag was 1313.
oh, was it? Okay.
I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure Ragtag was the code name for 1313.
But there have been some other titles that I believe.
Well,
like
I'm
a
sure
bounty
there
hunter.
have been a slew of titles that have been
Yeah.
canceled, haven't really gotten off the ground, that we're never going to hear about, we're never going to know about. There are rumors now that Disney has been kind of shopping the Star Wars license, looking at maybe going to Ubisoft or Activision, taking the license away from EA. These are unsubstantiated rumors, number one, and we should definitely stress that to anyone that's listening. We don't know if this is really happening. I don't even know if Disney can get out of this license in a way that is fiscally responsible. Because I would assume if Disney chooses to terminate this license before 2023, there are going to be some hefty fees.
Well, I mean, and I guess it all depends on what kind of escape clauses they have.
Right. Well, and now
now
it's not LucasArts anymore. It's Disney that owns Star Wars. So, what do you make of this?
I mean, I've looked at the two Battlefront titles, and I haven't hated them the same way that a lot of other people have. I don't think that they're EA's best work. It's their best work in terms of visuals and performance. Like the games
Right.
look great, they run great.
Oh, Frostbite
And
3 is an amazing engine.
oh yeah,
I think we all know that.
when you could get consoles and just like not even the Pro or Xbox One X running at 60 frames per second for the original Battlefront, like that's a huge deal. Like most console games are capped at 30 frames. So I mean that's a big deal. I thought that both games are stunning, but they both were lacking. And these are the best titles that I can talk about.
Well, right? I mean, that's like half of the titles they've put out with the Star Wars license.
I mean, if they're looking around, I don't know that Ubisoft would be one that I'd be looking at, just because Ubisoft has a bit of a stigma of their own.
Yeah,
in terms of
absolutely
under delivering and delaying titles. Like it's almost become just a standard thing that you see an Ubisoft release date for a game, and you're like, it's probably going to be 2 to 3 months after.
Right.
Right. But if Activision were to get it, that intrigues me.
Do you think Activision wants it? I mean, they already have Destiny.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but hey, could you imagine Blizzard making a Star Wars MMO?
I'd
be all over that. If you took the basically the framework of World of Warcraft and overlay a Star Wars, backdrop onto it, that could be interesting.
Let me throw a curveball at you.
Sure.
All right. We know Microsoft is struggling with exclusives.
Yep.
What if Microsoft makes a deal with Disney to make Star Wars a Microsoft exclusive property? They've got the money to make this happen. Microsoft has the money.
Do you think so though? Because when Disney doesn't give a shit about whether the titles are exclusives, they just want to have sales. And when you make something exclusive, that more benefits the specific platform as opposed to the developer.
I definitely agree. Sorry about that if anyone heard that autoplay video. I think Microsoft, I think they could make a play because I think they could pitch to Disney the fact that it's not only going to be the Xbox, it's also going to be the PC. And yes, I know all of these games are all multi-platform. But if Microsoft makes a good enough deal, like
that would be quite a play if they could pull it off.
Because I don't think Activision is where Star Wars needs to be, and I don't think it's Ubisoft either. If I had my way, it would just be, let's put together the old game, let's get LucasArts back together, and let's have Disney, curate the license.
Yeah, Disney do their own thing. Then
but they don't want to. They don't want to make video games anymore.
They just want to have the money come rolling in. So
right, absolutely. And I kind of hope we do see something really interesting come out of this. I wouldn't mind Star Wars being a Microsoft exclusive license. We know they've done amazing things with Halo. We know they've done amazing things with Gears of War. I think Disney wants to get out from under EA because EA has made it clear that they want to move away from single player storytelling experiences and move more into the games as a service, sort of format for all of their
Right.
video games. And if you're a company like Disney, you not only want obviously good video games to be released that are using your license, which EA has not done yet, but you also want to be releasing video games that you can cross market and you can create additional products based on the video game, whether
Right.
it's books or comics or action figures, etc., etc. And you can't do that with a first person shooter. Okay,
No.
there's just not really any cross merchandising you can do. But, if you release a new single player game and the Star Wars license that adds to, sort of the lore of Star Wars or the canon of Star Wars, well, then you can certainly spin off some novels, you can spin off some comic books, and that's going to make, Disney a ton more money. So,
Right.
I mean, I'm
And
kind of
I think you mean in terms of first person shooters, you mean like multiplayer focused.
right multiplayer focused
Right.
first person
Because I was going to
shooters.
point out that Dark Forces was a pretty huge.
Right.
There was quite a bit of spin-off from that.
You can't really do spin-offs for a video game that puts you on a map and says go kill, 20 other players that are also on the same map.
Yeah, yeah, certainly not unless it has a very strong single player as well.
Right, which
Yeah.
I don't think
Hey, it's
Battlefront
doable.
2
Call
does.
of Call of Duty. Well, Call of Duty can do. They have some titles as terrible as the multiplayer was for Infinite Warfare. The single player of that title was amazing. And you could have overlaid it with a Star Wars backdrop, and it would have been. You wouldn't have been able to tell the difference. It would have worked.
I maybe. Look, I'm not going to say it's not possible. I'm honestly thinking, would anybody pick up a Call of Duty book from Barnes and Nobles or Amazon? Would they buy one, or like a Call of Duty comic book? But
It all depends on
basically,
how
what
strong they
you're
make the
saying
characters.
is, if it had been, Star Wars as opposed to Call of Duty, then maybe they could have spun off some merch from that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely possible. I hope we see a change. That's for sure. I don't want EA
Agreed.
to have
I
this license
think,
for the next 5 years.
and I'm one of the few people that doesn't look at EA like they're like evil incarnate.
Right.
I think EA has maybe just kind of lost its way,
Okay.
and maybe they are trying too hard to please shareholders
Yeah.
and are not trying to make good titles. They're trying to make profitable titles.
Sure.
And those
I'd agree
those
with
two those two don't necessarily go hand in hand.
This is why I think Disney just needs to take the reins.
Yep.
They've got the resources, they've got all of the canon. They could be making some extremely good video games. Disney, I know you're not listening, but if you do for some reason, just take the license and start making some good games for us.
Next time I'm in California, I'll go to the Star Wars launch bay at Disneyland and be like, guys, I know how to fix things.
Just fix it. All right. All right. Well, let's move on from Disney and EA, and let's move to a little bit of sort of a controversial subject, and one that I actually have some opinions on. We're talking about Valve and a developer, Insel Games. Basically, the CEO of Insel Games sent their employees an email asking them, well, maybe not asking them, but strongly suggesting that the employees that just put out this new video game on Valve, called Wildbuster, should purchase the video game via Steam and post a review. And the employees complied because, it wasn't necessarily stated within the email, but you could infer from the tone of the email that if these employees did not purchase the game and post a review, there might be some repercussions. And
Yeah, that's a bit shady.
Yeah, Valve got wind of this. Somebody posted a copy of the email on Reddit, and Valve pulled the entire library from Insel Games off of Steam and said, we're no longer going to be working with this publisher.
Yep.
What do you think?
And I mean, you know what? Like it's pretty heavy-handed, but there's been a lot. Like I know a lot of people complain about Metacritic and will accuse any user that gives a higher score than they feel it should get as being an employee of that company.
Sure, a shill.
Developer.
Yeah, let's just call it a shill. That's what everyone else does.
So and I know, and quite obviously it does happen. So I think, I don't think Valve is wrong in doing it. I think it's something that needs to be brought under control per se, but they can only really do it when they have proof, right?
Right, and so, that's the stance I take on this. Yeah. They didn't get removed from Valve, or from Steam rather, because of what they did. They got removed from Steam because they got caught doing it.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Every single game that is released on Steam from any large publisher, even some smaller developers, people within that company are buying that game and they're writing up reviews, because it's their game. And if I made a video game and I was really happy with the work I had done, the hard work I had done, the hours I had put in, and I thought it was a great video game, then yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and buy the game, because I'm going to support my work and the work of all of my friends. And you're damn right I'm going to write a review saying, this is, the greatest game since, sliced bread or whatever.
That game of sliced bread.
What? Greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't know about pulling the entire library of this Insel Games from Steam. I mean, I know they want to protect the consumer, but a couple reviews from a small company, it's not going to move the needle.
Well, they're trying to take a stance so that they can be like, hey guys, look, we are actually doing something for when gamers come along and start complaining about it.
Right.
That's what they're doing.
And I guess the irony here is I'm going to read you part of this email. It says, I had sent an email earlier, but I was told that some of you announced to colleagues that you do not want to make a purchase of the game and or a review. Frankly, this leaves me pretty disappointed. Of course, I cannot force you to write a review, let alone tell you what to write, but I should not have to. Neglecting the importance of reviews will ultimately cost jobs. Well, good job, CEO, because you just cost everybody on your dev team their job, because now your game is no longer on the largest platform for digital distribution in the world. Like, right. That's really sad. I don't know. It sucks that people are going to lose their job over this, and I'm glad Steam is protecting their consumers, but at the same time, it's hard when you're like, yeah, this decision that Steam made is going to cost a lot of people their job. So.
Yep.
I don't know. But I think that's all we have to talk about today.
Yeah, I think that's about it.
Back to the old 50-minute long videos as opposed to the 15-minute video we had on Monday. Quick moment. Usually we don't talk about, obviously, politics or current events. but there was a shooting in a high school in Florida today. Thoughts and prayers to all the people affected by that. A lot of high schoolers play video games, and when something like this happens, video game, we're a relatively tight community, and it just really sucks.
Yeah,
So
definitely does.
Just quick moment to recognize that. Felt like it would be sort of disingenuous to not even bring it up and to kind of pretend the world just keeps spinning. Anyways, guys, sorry to end the show on such a somber note. But I think that's all we've got for you today. I'm David.
And I'm Dan.
And we will talk to you soon. Adios.